So in today's video, we're going to look at Introduction to Polynomial, and we're going to focus more on the vocabulary than anything else today because it is very important that you know what words mean. So the first one that success criteria is that you're going to be able to determine the name of a polynomial. You can find the degree. You can identify what we mean by the coefficients of each term, and you can place it in standard form. So those are the main things that we're going to be looking at today. Again, is the name, the degree, what the word coefficient means, and what it means to be in standard form. So I've got you a list of vocabulary words there, and we're going to define most of them as we go through here. Now, the first thing I want to look at is what we call the standard form. And I know this looks kind of crazy, but that is the notation that they use. So an example of that would actually be something that looked like maybe 3x squared plus 4x minus 5. That would be an example. Or maybe even if you had a negative 2x5 plus 3x3 minus 2. Any of that could be in that form, again, for a standard form. So let's talk about what the degree is of a polynomial. So there's two different ways that we talk about degree. And the majority of the time it is when we talk about it in one variable. And that would be like what I gave you an example over to the side. Those would be one variables, because in this case my variable is an x. And so in this case, if it is one variable, it is the degree is your highest power, okay, or highest exponent. So in this case, my degree would be 2, because that's a 2. And in this one, the degree would be a 5, because that is my highest. Okay, so it is your highest power. Now, if it is in more than 1, then what we need to do is we're going to add them together. So that might be something, let's see, let me put add powers. So that might be if you had like an x squared y cubed, then that would be degree 5, okay? Or if you had 2x y 5, that would be degree 6, because that's an understood 1 there. So if you have more than one variable, it is the highest power. Majority of the time with what we're doing in here, we're going to be graphing so forth, and we're just going to have the one variable x. And so for the majority of the time, it is our highest power. Okay, then the next is what's descending order. Well, descending order is simply like what it says. You put the highest power first, and then go down from there. Okay. So the ones that I gave you over here would be in descending order. So 3x squared plus 4x minus 5, that would be in descending order. If I had given you x minus 5 plus 3x squared, that would not be in descending order. Okay? The next word is coefficients, okay? And again, the coefficients tell us how many we have, okay? The number of each term. Okay, so again, I'm going to use this as an example up here. So my coefficients here are 3, 4, and 5, okay? So when we talk coefficient, that's just our number out in front, tells us how many we have. We have 3x squared. So if I said, how many x's do we have? You'd say 4. Most kids would say, oh, we just have 1. No, you have 4 of them because there's a 4 coefficient on there. So it's the number of each term. Now, we're also going to talk about what's the leading coefficient. And the leading coefficient is simply your coefficient on your largest power, okay, or your highest degree. So in this case, the example I gave you here, our leading coefficient would be 3. And a lot of times we'll put LC. Leading coefficient is 3. Now, why do we care what the leading coefficient is? Well, we've done graphing before. We know that if it's positive, our graph opens up. If it's negative, our graph opens down. Also, we know that by changing the leading coefficient to like 3, 4, 5, it typically makes our graph get steeper. 1/2, 1/3, so forth, makes our graph get wider. So knowing the leading coefficient becomes important in some of the stuff we're doing. The next is the one that we forget all the time, and that is our constant term. And technically, it is our x0 term, okay? So it is simply a number, because remember, x to the 0 is equal to 1. So if I was doing, again, let's say the problem that we had here, this could be written as x to the 0, because if you look at your powers, 2, 1, 0, and I know x to the 0 is just 1, see, so that's still going to give me the -5. So x to the 0, that is our constant term. It is your x to the 0 term, okay? So your x to the 0 term. Or again, it's just a number. Whoops, sorry about that. Now, again, why do I need to know that? Because we'll be talking about it here in a little bit when we start looking at our factors. Okay? So let's name a little bit here. And again, you do need to know these names. So again, if it has a degree 0, that is considered a constant function. An example of that would be if I had just f of x equals, let's say, 3, or y equals 3. That would be considered a constant function. That would be either our horizontal, typically horizontal, or it could be our vertical. Okay, although our vertical is not a function. Okay, but you would still see it in that form. The next one is your linear function. That's the one we've seen before, or linear equation. Mx plus b, if you want to think of it that way. I'll just go ahead and write that in here. But an example might be y equals, 2x plus 3. Okay, that would be our linear function. Our quadratic function would be f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And again, an example might be, and I could do f of x, or I could do y. It doesn't matter. So again, that would be my 3x squared plus 4x minus 5. My cubic function, okay, would be ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d. That would be your basic form of it. Okay, and an example might be something like 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 3. Now, I on purpose left out a term because you don't have to have every term in there. That is, again, just the standard form of it. So you're very familiar with lines, y equals mx plus b, quadratics, ax squared plus bx plus c, and then our cubic. Okay, and then it would just keep going. Our quartic would be our next one. I didn't write it on here. Quartic. That would be 4. And again, it would just be an x to the 4th power. Okay, so those are your vocabulary words for this piece.